Alrighty, here we go. Okay, so let's start in a seated position like we normally do. I'm just going to grab a block to sit on, but you can use whatever feels good for you. Blankets, anything to prop yourself up. Okay, so like I said, like I was telling you today, our class is just going to be a little bit different. We are going to, instead of doing a full restorative class for the entire hour, I'm going to introduce, let's see, there's only about 4 yin postures at the beginning. And the purpose of that is, we usually do a little warm up anyways, but the purpose of this today is to open up some of the, the hips, glutes, some chest work and stuff like that. So hopefully it'll feel really good. And then we'll do about 10, 15 minutes of that. And then we'll roll into our nice deep restorative postures. And I mentioned for the yin posture, we're going to do a nice opener this way. So if you can't reach fingers to fingers, hand to hand here, just grab like a dish towel or a t-shirt. I have a onesie, that'll work too. So just anything to help cover that gap between your hands. All right, so let's come to a nice seated position. Maybe close your eyes if it feels good. And just begin to deepen your inhale. And lengthen that exhale. Good, breathing nice and deep. Maybe taking in some of the deepest breaths you've taken all day, all weekend, maybe even all week. So you're going to feel that chest expand on the inhale and the chest release down on the exhale. Good. And the first part of practice that I always begin with is the disconnection from the outside world. So if you have gentle music on, sometimes that can help, but throughout the practice, there may be noises outside of the room, maybe even in the room. And part of the practice is just bringing yourself back to the mat, back to this room, back to your breath, back to your body. Beginning to step away from all of those distractions out there. And I was listening to this podcast today, and I was talking about how we are constantly always becoming. Like in 5 years, you're going to have, from now until 5 years from now, you're going to have become somebody slightly different, like a little bit of a different version of yourself, whatever evolutions happen over the next 5 years. And we get to shape who we are becoming, which I think is a really cool thing to think about, because sometimes we just think that life is happening to us and we're kind of coasting through it. And sometimes that does feel to be the case. But one of the cool things is that we get to start to shape who we become. And the way that we do that is the little adjustments that we're making, the little kind of changes and shifts. Sometimes it's just simple things, like maybe having breakfast in the morning or going to bed a little bit earlier. And sometimes the things are a little bit bigger, like introducing a restorative yoga practice consistently into your life, or maybe taking a new job, or just kind of all these little adjustments that we're making so that we start to become a slightly different version of ourselves. And I think it's cool that you get to do that consciously and with intention. So just something to think about as we sit here on our mat, breathing deeply. Take a few more breaths. One moment.
Can't be in here.
Little child snuck in. One of the glorious parts about having a home yoga studio. The kids know where I am. And so just acknowledging kind of where you are when you come to the mat today. And maybe there's an upbeat energy to your day that you're now just kind of coming down from. Or maybe it's been a lower energy day, and you can just acknowledge none of it is necessarily good or bad, but just acknowledging where you're at energetically. And noticing your body. I've been feeling my knees lately. Hope it's not old age, but just acknowledging what's speaking to you. What parts of your body have you been feeling lately? And acknowledging where your emotions are. It's a weird time with this quarantine and everything we're going through. Just acknowledging where you're at there. And throughout this practice, the goal is not to empty your mind. It's not to, have a blank slate on the inside. It's really just to start to notice what's going on. Because as we go through our days, we barely take a time and take a pause, give ourselves a chance to see what's going on. So now's a great chance to do that. And on your next inhale, just make it nice and deep. And I want you to begin to count in your own mind to yourself. Just count how long that inhale is. And when you fill up completely, go into the exhale and find that exact same count with the exhale. Maybe pause for just a moment at the bottom of that. And then go into it again. So going into the inhale, counting in your mind again. Maybe you get to the same number, maybe a different number. It's totally fine. And then pausing at the top and flipping right down into that exhale. Counting as well. So we're finding a nice balance there. And sometimes when we come to the mat, our inhale feels a little bit stuck. Sometimes it flows nice and smoothly, and it's easy to really get a full inhale, and sometimes it's not. So just use this as a practice to yourself, in your own mind, to count with that inhale. Maybe stretch it a little bit farther. And then balancing it out with a nice, smooth exhale. And as we do this, continue on your own with the counting. Just begin to feel some of the muscles in your face and in your jaw relaxing. Continuing with that counting, begin to feel your hands just resting really heavy on your thighs, your knees, wherever they're resting. Feel a heaviness there. Continue with the counting, finding the even inhale to exhale. Good. And then feel a heaviness to your sit bones, your legs, your knees, your ankles, your feet. Just feeling everything rooting down nice and heavy to the earth. And with this heaviness coming down, still feel a nice strength through your spine, drawing you upwards. And if you're still counting, you can release the count, but still find a nice, strong inhale and even exhale. No need to count with it anymore, though. And then when you're ready, just release your chin down to your chest. And flutter open your eyes, gazing at the floor in front of you. And then when you're ready, you can draw your gaze up. All right, so like I said, we're going to begin with just a few yin postures before we go 100% restorative. And if you have yoga blocks or even blankets or towels, that's what we're going to use for the first posture. So this is the yin version of Baddha Konasana. So bound ankle pose. They call it butterfly pose, I believe, in yin yoga. And sometimes people bring their feet really close to their body. But for this one, we're just going to release our feet out a little bit further. If you want some support underneath your knees, you can do that. But just make sure there's a little bit more distance between your hips and your feet. And then if you have some blankets or even blocks, we're going to eventually use these to rest our forehead on, but not yet. So just keep them handy, but that's about how much you'll need to kind of cover the space. So it depends on how tight your hips are. And of course, I mean, my hips are pretty tight. My knees are nice and high. So if you want some support under there, place that there. Okay, so with a little bit of distance between your hips and your feet, we're gonna find a nice straight back here. Roll those shoulders up and draw them down. Maybe do 2 more circles like that. Rolling them up on a nice inhale, and releasing down on an exhale. Good. So let your shoulder blades just kind of draw together on the back. Nice straight spine. And keeping your spine nice and straight, we're just going to begin on the exhale. So inhale. On the exhale, we're going to draw ourselves down partway. And we're not rounding through the spine yet. We will be rounding through the spine. Pause for an inhale. And as you exhale, come down partway. Good. I like to use my hands for a little bit of leverage to help guide myself down. Pause here, take an inhale. And as you exhale, begin to lower down a little bit more. Good. Now, wherever you place your hands is up to you. Depends on how flexible you are. But this is your chance to kind of round through the back. And if you need to make any adjustments to where your feet are so that you feel a little bit of opening through the hips, you can. And if you want to stay right here, you can. We're going to hold this for a few minutes. Otherwise, to even help make it a little more restorative, I'm going to draw your blocks or your blankets, whatever you have, and rest your head on there. And allow yourself to make adjustments as your hips kind of, and even your lower back start to warm up to this posture. Okay, now while you're holding this posture, begin to notice where you're feeling that tension. I talk about this a lot in our restorative postures as well. But just start to notice if you're feeling it through the low back, maybe you're feeling it into the hips. But just start to notice where it's like you meet that tension and your body kind of tenses up even more, and you might even feel a little bit of a shaking there. And this is your chance to take your inhale and move through that tension with your exhale. Ask your body just to release a little bit more. Move into another inhale. Maybe you can release a little bit more. And sometimes you find that through this release, your body is able to go a little bit deeper into the posture. So don't go anywhere that you feel pain, but you do want to find a place where there's a little bit of that. It's called a stress, but you don't want to be putting stress on your body in the way that we often think about it. But you are feeling that tension. You are feeling that stretch. And we're here for about 1 more minute. And start to come back to that breath if your mind begins to wander. Maybe you find you want to release the prop underneath your head altogether just for the last 30 seconds. You don't have to. And then when you're ready, just slowly drawing the hands down along the sides of your feet and draw your torso up with a nice flat back, the exact same way we went down. We're going to place our hands behind with the fingertips facing towards your hips and just gently windshield wiper your legs from side to side. Just a couple times on each side, and then pause your knees in the middle and open through those shoulders, open through that chest. With a little baby, I'm doing a lot of breastfeeding right now, and my chest, my back, my shoulders, everything just feels so off. Draw those shoulder blades together. Maybe open up a little bit through the throat. Meet that tension with a nice exhale and find a softening. And then when you're ready, begin to windshield wiper those legs a little bit more, this time even a little bit slower. Maybe pausing on one side. And then pausing on the other just for a moment or two. Good, and then find stillness once again and roll those shoulders up and back. So really shine that heart forward. Good. Then we'll come back up to seated and move on to your shins. So we're going to take our handy dandy dish towel or onesie or whatever it is that you have behind you. You're going to grab it. You may just be able to interlace your hands, but it's great if you can do that, if you can bring your palms together. So don't be afraid to use a little extra help here if you need. Roll those shoulders up and back, and then we're just going to slowly start to draw the arms up. Feeling that opening through the chest, and maybe just gently roll from one side to the other. And then come back to the middle. And then find a little bit more of a back bend here. So draw those hands down and away from your body and open through the heart. And again, feel that resistance, feel that tension, and just meet it with a softening and an exhale. Good, and then we're going to release. All right, so our last one that we're going to do is Gomukhasana. This is one of my absolute favorites. It's a tough one, and I have no clue how my body's going to be able to do it. I haven't done it in a little while. But the idea is you draw, I'm going to start with my left leg underneath, and then your right leg comes on top. Oh, wow, use hips. Okay, so you want to get your knees as much stacked on top of each other as they can, but you may find, like where I'm at right now, my hips are super tight, and so my knees definitely not right on top. But eventually, and you kind of can shift a little bit, eventually you'll get closer to that. But right now, to be able to hold this for a while, I have more space there. So if our right leg is over on the top, we're going to take our left arm and grab your onesie, or don't if you don't need it. But we're going to bring it up, find it with that opposite hand, and just begin to walk them closer to each other. Maybe eventually they're touching, your fingers grab each other. And one thing that's really common for the upper body in this posture is to kind of draw this top shoulder. Here, I'll go sideways so you can see it a little bit better. This top shoulder starts to come forward, and we hunch into the posture. Open up here. So you want that elbow to be pointing up towards the ceiling. Oh my gosh, my body is so tight. Okay, there we go. And use that bottom hand to kind of push into your chest to open up through the heart a little bit more. And if your arms start to kind of drift this way, your elbows are coming out to the side, draw them back in. That's why having this prop can be really helpful here. Use your exhale to find some softness in the areas where there's tension. Keep an eye on that elbow. Make sure it's pointing up. Find your breath. Feel the coolness on the inhale as the air is coming in through your nostrils. And feel the warmth on the exhale. One more breath here. Good, and release that bottom arm and release the top arm. We'll place our hands behind us again, just windshield wiper those knees. And we'll move to the other side. Draw one leg under, and your other leg comes up and over. And shift your hips again if you need to. With that left leg on top, or whichever leg's on top, put the other arm up, and find Gomukhasana on the other side. You may feel differences from one side to the next. But again, keep that bicep really hugging in towards the ear on your upper arm, the elbow pointing up. That bottom hand is just used to gently push into your back to open through the heart. So you're not hunching. Good, and find that exhale, find that softness. Got about 4 more breaths here. Maybe you begin to just gently walk your hands closer if you feel them loosening up. And on your last exhale, release that bottom arm, release the top arm. You can place your prop to the side, and again, just lean back on those hands and windshield wiper the legs from side to side. All right, so we are going to go into, I think we're going to start with a twist for reclined, because a nice twist would feel good after all that work. So this is going to be a reclined twist. We're going to be flat on our back, but grab a couple of blankets to help support your legs. So as we lie down, I'll bring my blankets up here so I can grab them easily. Lie down on our back. Just pause here for a moment. Sometimes yin stretches can be a little intense on the body. So allow yourself to feel the earth beneath you and feel the back of the head heavy, the spine supported, the back of the hands, the elbows and shoulders rooting down, the hips heavy, and the heels heavy. And we're going to start with our left leg. So when you're ready, just draw that left leg up and into your chest. And with the left leg up, we'll place our left arm over to the side. So as you take a big inhale, draw that leg in a little bit more. And as you exhale, we're going to kind of roll over onto that right hip, the side of that hip, and find our stretch here. Now, if you go to like a vinyasa class, they'll have you usually end right here, but since this is restorative, if this left knee is up in the air like mine is, Be generous with the props and just draw them underneath that knee so you're really supported there. So my bottom half is actually rolled up onto the side of my hip. My left shoulder is rooting down into the earth. And if you want, you can gaze over that left shoulder too. And feel free as always to adjust your props. So if you need a little more height on those blankets, you can do that. Now let's really tune into what's going on with our spine. So notice every individual vertebrae, just starting at the base of your spine. And notice how it feels. If you're feeling kind of a movement, kind of a gentle twist, starting at the base of your spine, traveling up through the middle of your back and into the upper back, and then even into the neck if that feels good for you. With the first part of our practice being the disconnection from the outside world and enjoying a few yin postures like we did, now we start to go deep within. Maybe feeling the breath as it's traveling in, filling you up. Maybe noticing the thoughts in your mind. Maybe noticing any parts of your body that feel tingly or achy or tight. Using your exhale to find a little more release where you're holding any tension. Sometimes that bottom leg or the hips might hold some tension in this posture. The eyes, the muscles around the eyes, the jaw. And just notice how this posture is feeling, if it's any different than when you first got into it. Maybe your body is settling into it and finding a little more ease and release. Good, and then when you're ready, we're going to slowly move out of this side to the other side. So moving very slowly, we'll draw that left leg up, rolling back onto the spine. And you can adjust your hips if you want, but still keeping that left leg raised. Let's draw it into our chest. And then release it down nice and long. Next to your right leg. We'll move our props to the other side. When you're ready, shift your hips if you need to and draw that right leg up. Just pause here for a moment, hugging it into your chest. Good. And then holding that right leg with your left arm, you can release the right arm down to the side if it feels good. Take a nice inhale. On the exhale, rolling up onto that left side, that left hip, finding that twist on this side. And keep that right shoulder rooted down. And if you want, again, you can gaze over that right shoulder. And just like we did on the first side, let's dial into that spine. Notice every individual vertebrae, starting at the base, traveling up through the middle back. Are you able to release just a little bit more? In the upper back and through the neck. And just noticing if any part feels like it's got a little extra tension. Maybe you can let go a little bit more. Notice where you're holding that tension. Find it in your body. Is it in one of your arms, maybe in a leg, in your hips, your face, your shoulders? And feel a heaviness and a release as you let it go. Imagine your whole body just feeling like a putty, like a heaviness. Two more breaths. And then just like we moved out of the first side, we'll slowly move out of this side too. Draw that right leg up. Adjust your hips. And we'll bring that right leg up again, hugging it into the chest. And then we'll move into a little bit of a happy baby pose here. So we're not going to hold this for very long. This one can feel so good on your hips. Maybe straightening the legs if it feels good. Maybe drawing one leg down and then the other leg down. And then both one more time. Good. You can release your legs down. We'll roll over onto our side and come up to a seated position. All right. So we are going to do mountain brook pose because I did that one before and I just loved it. All right. So we're going to make our bolster with one blanket. How are we doing on time? Okay, we're good. All right. So roll up one blanket, just like we do pretty much every class. We end up making a bolster. And then we'll take another blanket. Now you may find that you only want actually one. I'm going to just use one because I know this is as open as my chest, my back bend can get. But if you want a little more height on this bolster, it's going to go in like our middle back. We're going to lay over it. So you can put another blanket on it. But I'm just going to use the one blanket here. Okay, and then we are going to make a little neck roll. So grab another towel or blanket, and we're just going to roll half of it. So my head is going to rest on this part, and then this is going to be just in the kind of crook of my neck in the back. So it's sort of like a half roll, if you can see that. All right. And then I do recommend having something to go underneath your knees. So you can use anything here, a pillow, stack of blankets. I'm just going to use one more towel rolled up, one more blanket rolled up. All right, so we'll put one underneath our knees, and your legs are going to be nice and long here. If you want, you can separate the feet. or you can have them hips width distance apart, whatever feels most comfortable for you. And then I'm going to lay back. And the idea is my shoulders are on the ground. My head is resting on this part of the blanket. This little roll is just underneath my neck, so it's just supporting it. So it's called mountain brook pose because there's kind of like a rolling, like an undulation going on with your body. And then this middle one, this is kind of an important one. You don't want it to feel like there's a huge intense back bend going on, but you definitely do want to be opening through the chest here. So if you need to add another blanket there, now is a great time to do it. And if it feels too low on your back, you'll start to feel kind of like a little pinching in your middle to low back. So if that's the case, you can just play with moving it a little bit higher. But you definitely want the shoulders to roll down off of the bolster and rest on the mat. And again, feel free to find some distance between your ankles and just open your feet out to the side. So allow them to really release. If you feel any tension on the low back, you can kind of shift your hips around to release that. Hopefully the bolster under your knees helps. And then draw the arms down to the side, palms facing up. And find your breath. And let's do a full body scan here. We have 3 different props. So first of all, just bring your awareness to the knees, making sure they feel supported. Making sure the heels are nice and heavy. The knees are supported, but the hips are coming down nice and heavy. And then bring your awareness to the middle bolster, the one underneath your mid-back. Make sure the height feels good. Your chest feels open, but there's not a strain there. And your shoulders should be resting on the mat. And then bring your awareness to the third bolster, the third blanket, right underneath your neck, cradling your head. Make sure it feels good. Release the muscles in the face and the jaw. Releasing the hands and the arms, the shoulders. And as your mind begins to wander, just gently guide it back to the mat. And allowing the inhale and the exhale to feel nice and easy. Maybe it feels shallow, or maybe there's a depth to it. Just acknowledging it, not forcing it in any way. We're here for just a few more breaths. And when you're ready, let's bring the legs up, placing your feet on the ground, rolling over onto your side. You can move that middle bolster and find fetal position. Good. And then when you're ready, we'll slowly come back up. It's one of my new favorites. So we're going to move into supine Baddha Konasana, and then we did butterfly, and this is the restorative version of that. So another hip opener. And we're going to make our bolster. So if you already have one rolled, one blanket, you can use that and then grab your other. Good. So we're making a equivalent of a yoga bolster. And then we'll take some yoga blocks, or I've actually used books as well. Thought I should make a video of all the props you can use for practicing at home. It might be helpful. And I'm going to set up my blocks in a T. So just like this. And if you want a little more height, if you have any more blocks or more books, you can always kind of give yourself a little more support if you need it. My. All right, so then we are going to take the bolster and place it on here. And you might find that you want some blankets underneath your knees. All right, so bring the bottoms of your feet together, and we'll place the base of our spine up against the bolster. And I'm going to need this a little bit higher because my hips are so tight. And when you're ready, just slowly lower yourself down. And sometimes it feels nice to have another blanket or something underneath your head for a little pillow. Make sure the bottom of your back feels nice and supported, and the shoulder blades are kind of drooping down to either side of the bolster. Place the backs of your hands on the floor. And this is a huge opening posture. You're opening through the chest, opening through the hips. So settle in here, and again, tune into all the different parts of your body. Notice if there's tension anywhere. And allow your exhale to let it go. Good. Make sure both shoulder blades are kind of releasing down either side of the bolster. Make sure your spine feels nice and supported. And the back of your head feels nice and supported. Begin to allow yourself to kind of drift away, releasing the sympathetic nervous system and allowing the parasympathetic nervous system to take place and do its thing. Beginning to find that place of ease and release. The quiet and stillness that we find sometimes only right before we fall asleep at night. We're here for another minute or two. We're slowly going to start to come back. Our next posture is our final Shavasana. So if for any reason you want to stay right where you are, you can. And you have the option of drawing your knees up and lengthening one leg and then the other. If you want to take your Shavasana here, you can do that. Otherwise, we'll roll down onto our side, coming up to a seated position and just removing the props. And then lowering back down. So wherever you find yourself for Shavasana, just make sure you feel comfortable. If you need a little bolster under your knees, sometimes that helps to relieve any stress in the low back. And if you're lying down flat on the ground, roll up to one side and just draw that opposite shoulder under. And then roll up to the other side and draw that opposite shoulder under. So your shoulder blades are coming nice and close towards each other. And then settle in. And you can find some space between your feet. And then begin to feel that heaviness in your body and your joints, your bones. Allow all of your muscles to completely let go. We're here for just a few more breaths. And slowly begin to deepen your inhale. And your exhale, letting it all out. Wiggle your fingers and your toes. Slowly beginning the final part of class, the transforming, not quite transforming, but we are transforming. Begin the journey back to the real world. And draw your arms up overhead, finding a full body stretch from your fingertips down to your toes. And when you're ready, roll over onto your side. If you're on a prop, just gently coming off. Find the fetal position, still with your eyes closed. And when you're ready, just gently find your way up to a seated position, maybe reversing the cross of your legs. So if one leg is always in front, putting the other one in front. Feel free to sit on a prop if you'd like. And soaking in just a few more minutes of this stillness. Notice any shifts with the body, the emotions, the energy. Maybe you're finding yourself a little more peaceful and grounded and centered. And if you are, I hope you can carry that with you into the week ahead of you. As we find ourselves making all these little decisions every single day that help to shape who we are becoming. Bring your hands up to the heart, palm to palm. Thank you for joining me in this practice today. The light in me reflects the beautiful light in you. Namaste. Thank you for coming, and I hope you have a lovely week ahead of you. Take care, Ashley.
You.
You're welcome.